Welcome back. This is a geometry video having a look at quadrilaterals and the characteristics of them. So let's have a look at each one as we go, just quickly. What's the angle sum of a quadrilateral? When any four-sided figure has an angle sum of 360 degrees. List the geometrical characteristics of a parallelogram. Okay, so it's an underrated thing, but if you know all the characteristics of all the geometrical shapes, then you have a good basis of getting successful outcomes to each of your questions based on geometry. Not many students know all the characteristics of these shapes. It's worth learning, let me tell you. But the characteristics of a parallelogram include opposite sides being parallel, opposite sides being equal, opposite angles being equal, diagonals bisecting each other. So that's for a parallelogram. Before we leave that slide there, we could, of course, draw a diagram that pretty much indicates each of those things. There are geometrical markings we could have on each of these diagrams here. So if we did that, we could illustrate that opposite sides are parallel by having a symbol, parallel symbols there, and a couple of different ones here. So that is another way of showing these characteristics. So if you memorize a diagram with all these characteristics on it, then you'll be in business here. For example, you could have this color. To show that opposite sides are equal, we could have one marking there and two markings there. That's another way of showing that those are equal. Opposite angles being equal, we could put the same angle symbol on the diagonally opposite angles, such as that there, and a curly one there. And diagonals bisecting each other could be also on that diagram. So you can sum up a lot of geometrical characteristics with a very good diagram that you can use for your memorizing of the different characteristics. Geometrical characteristics of rectangle include opposite sides parallel, opposite sides equal, opposite angles being equal, and angles bisecting each other. Any more? Yep, diagonals being equal as well. So you could draw a diagram of all those with the markings on them, just to have that up your sleeve. List the geometrical characteristics of a square. Now there are heaps of these. Square is a very special shape because it's got more characteristics than all the other more exotic ones. So it's got all of these characteristics, and I couldn't be bothered scrolling through them one at a time. But one challenge you could have is to draw a diagram with all these markings on them to illustrate each of those points, and that could run it through your brain one more time there. Geometrical characteristics of a rhombus. Opposite sides parallel. You'll remember a rhombus is like a bashed up square. So if you get that pretty right there, you can put all those characteristics there. Opposite sides parallel. You could put the parallel markings on, etc. So they're the characteristics of a rhombus that a question might be based on. Characteristics of a trapezium. It's a quadrilateral with one pair of sides parallel. So we're talking parallel sides there, and often it looks a bit like that, and we'll indicate the parallelness of the top and bottom sides there by the markings. So that's the key bit of a trapezium, really. Geometrical characteristics of a kite. Well, it's a quadrilateral with two pairs of adjacent sides equal. Now you know what a kite looks like, but perhaps you didn't register that it's got two pairs of adjacent sides being equal. So that and that would be equal, and that would be equal, particularly if I could draw properly. So adjacent means beside each other. So these two sides are beside each other and equal, and these two sides are beside each other and equal. Alright, that's just a rundown of the characteristics of quadrilaterals. Now I'd really encourage you to memorize them at some stage, because there are plenty of questions that necessitate you that can only be done successfully if you know the exact characteristics of the exact quadrilaterals at the right time. So all the best with that. It takes a bit of work, but it'll be worth it. Thanks for listening.